Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for inquiring about this or any of our watches. Reach out to us at tmosso@the1916company.com. Today, we're discussing a short-lived model from IWC that I find highly desirable, distinctive, and classically beautiful. From IWC, this is the Portuguese Regulator, reference 5444-01 in steel. This was only made from 2007 to 2009, and I haven't reviewed it in years, which means I'm going to review it today with some of the updated features of these overviews, including full dimensions, wrist shots, and more. 43 millimeters in diameter. It's actually quite slim at 12.1 millimeters thick, which is a little bit less than a Rolex Daytona. 50.8 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip. It's not quite as compact as a Portuguese or chronograph, but it's much smaller than some of the standard 42 to 44 millimeter watches. There's a 22 millimeter space between the lugs. Now the watch wears well. As you can see, super flat flush with a concave bezel. It will fit underneath the dress cuff, and no problem in doing that. My wrist is 16 centimeters circumference, and this is a large watch, but let me draw away my cuff so you're not quite as blinded in the watch as and obscured, but you can see how flat it is in the cuff shot. And then down the barrel, it's out to the edge of my wrist, but it's not over the edge of my wrist. Over the top, which exaggerates the width of the watch, it might look like it's overhanging, but that's mostly because of the angle and the fact that I'm pulling this unbroken in strap, which is quite stiff, very tightly. So I'd recommend it for a wrist of my size or larger, 16 centimeters circumference and up. The strap is high grade. We have medium rectangular scale, alligator leather, and it is a dark blue. There is some bolstering or stuffing to give it volume. A monotone stitch. We've got a sheer cut edge showing the layers of leather. On the bottom, calfskin, brand new IWC factory strap, no crimping, no gouging. And then we have a IWC stainless steel pin buckle that incorporates elements of satin and finish for contrast, as does the case. So the mid-case is satinated. The lug hoods, as well as the case back and the bezel and the crown, are polished. You can see IWC Probus Scafusia, the motto of the company, a good solid watch made in Schaffhausen. The watch is thinned out visually by the use of a concave bezel, and it has a lot of the traditional IWC Portuguese elements from the arrival of the original reference 325 in 1939. It was a product of form-following function philosophy that grew out of many different schools of thought. There was Art Deco, which was a style, and then there were Bauhaus and Deutsche Werkbund, which were a little bit more philosophically driven. And this idea of the lugs being blended into the case was very much of the time, which is why the Portugueser and the contemporary Patek 96, although dramatically different in scale, have very similar design features. They came from the same school of thought. Now the dial here incorporates other traditional Portugueser elements, including leaf-style hands, a railroad track for minutes outboard, small seconds, but we also have Arabic numerals, but they're on a small hour subdial, as this is a regulateur. It is a watch that separates the hours, minutes, and seconds into separate displays, named because oftentimes regulator clocks or mother clocks in watchmaking studios would have these different features of the time clearly marked for setting watches and clocks in the shop. We have a lovely silver white dial that's sort of an opaline or a light non-directional frosted finish with blued numerals as well as hands, and the watch is nicely balanced. You can split it down the center as well as side to side, and each side, or the top and the bottom juxtaposed to each other, will look like a mirror reflection of its opposite, so it has nice cruciform symmetry to it, which is quite pleasing. And like the original reference 325 IWC Portugueser of the 1930s, this one is powered by a pocket watch movement. So the original Portuguese was created at the behest of the Portuguese importers of IWC. They were Rodriguez and Teixeira, and they asked for a wristwatch purpose-built that would be as accurate as a pocket watch. At the time, the smaller the movement, the worse it kept time. The bigger the movement, the better it kept time. So a purpose-built, oversized wristwatch, possibly the first in history, was designed around an IWC pocket watch caliber, and that's what we have right here in this caliber 98245. Which is enormous at over 37 millimeters in diameter, and it's very traditional the way a pocket watch caliber tends to be. So you got your crown wheel, ratchet wheel atop the barrel, click and click spring, designed pocket watch style. You can see extensible with a swan's neck spring. We then have a center wheel architecture with center third, fourth escape wheel, balance cock, single-sided with an enormous 2.5 hertz balance, so a slow beat rate, 18,000 vibrations per hour like a pocket watch, with an overcoil hairspring to allow it to keep superb time in any physical orientation, and a high horology and chronometer spec 5 positions. When you see high horology watches and chronometer, it's almost always 5 positions on your Omega chronometers and your Vacheron Geneva seals, so you'll like to see that on this 22 joule movement. You have the F.A. Jones-inspired Jones Arrow Index, a tribute to the American watchmaker who founded IWC in Schaffhausen in 1868. He liked large micrometric regulators that allowed for precise timing changes with only a small amount of motion. And you could see that the whole regulator and the cap to the curb pins all black polished, all screw heads polished. One feature that is exceptional here is that this manual wind 46-hour power reserve caliber does have the world's largest hacking lever, which you can see right there, and it'll move away from the balance. Now it moves back into contact. It's a lot of fun to play with that. Some pocket watch elements. We have a 3/4 style bridge as it would have been in the pocket watch era. We have that center wheel architecture, the Jones Arrow Index, the Swan's Neck style click with the extensible pivoted click pawl right there. You can see that, a unique piece that is distinctive of these. Solarization on the crown wheel and the ratchet wheel. We have beveling on the edge of the bridges, mechanically executed but very neat and handsome, with satination and beveling on the bridge for the escapement below the balance. And you can see engine turning on the base plate, polished screw heads, quite impressive stuff, all 30 meters water resistant, which is dress watch standard. Again, manual wind with a 46-hour power reserve and a giant balance wheel that's almost the radius of the movement. Another nod to the way watches were made in the 19th century. You can see these little golden chaton profiles around the jewels, reminding us of the period when it would have been customary to press a jewel into a precision golden chaton because they could not be pressed directly into bridges and plates, and then take that chaton and press it into the bridge. That's how it used to be done. A beautifully executed watch and an unusual and rare variety of modern Portugueser. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.